Star Trek is not a space soap opera. We are starting over.
I didn't invest millions to watch teenage drama in space.
Captain Kirk just torpedoed a Star Trek show, and Paramount had absolutely no choice but to pull the plug. Chris Pine opened his mouth, said what everybody was thinking, and Starfleet Academy is now officially dead. Let's get right into it, because this story is genuinely one of the most wild things to happen in the streaming world this year. Paramount Plus just canceled Starfleet Academy after a single season, and the reason behind it isn't some boring boardroom budget decision or a quiet ratings slide they hoped nobody would notice. No, this cancellation has Chris Pine's fingerprints all over it, and the details of what went down are almost too dramatic to believe. Almost. Here's what you need to understand first. Paramount has been treating Star Trek as their crown jewel on Paramount Plus for years now. Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Prodigy, they have been throwing shows at the wall like their entire streaming future depends on it, because honestly, it kind of does. Star Trek is supposed to be their Star Wars. Starfleet Academy was the next big bet, a show aimed at younger audiences, fresh faces, a new corner of the universe. It was supposed to bring in a whole new generation of fans and prove that the franchise could grow beyond its existing base. Instead, it became a cautionary tale that the entire industry is going to be talking about for a long time. So what actually happened? What did Chris Pine say that caused this much damage? Because this is where things get genuinely fascinating and a little bit brutal. Chris Pine, the man who plays Captain Kirk in the Kelvin Timeline films, was at an industry event when someone asked him about the new Star Trek shows on Paramount Plus. And instead of doing what every other Hollywood actor does, giving some vague, cheerful, say-nothing answer, Chris apparently decided he was done pretending. He said he tried watching Starfleet Academy because he genuinely cares about the franchise and wanted to support it, but he couldn't get through the first few episodes. His verdict? The writing was weak, the characters felt hollow, and the whole show felt less like Star Trek and more like a generic teen drama that just happened to be set in space.
I was created 217 days ago on one massive planet at the Academy. Do you demonstrate? Yeah. What you want to do.
I defy Section 285.
There it is, sir.
And then came the quote that absolutely broke the internet. Chris allegedly said, and I'm paraphrasing here because the exact wording is unverified, that Starfleet Academy felt like someone took a CW teen drama script, did a find and replace swapping high school for Starfleet Academy, and called it Star Trek. He reportedly added that it wasn't what Gene Roddenberry created, and it wasn't what fans deserve. Now let that sink in for a second. That's not a random critic or an anonymous Reddit post. That's the guy who plays Captain Kirk telling the world that your Star Trek show isn't even Star Trek. That's a nuclear-level criticism delivered with surgical precision, and the blast radius was enormous. But Pine didn't stop there, and this is where his comments went from spicy to absolutely scorched earth. He reportedly also took aim at the show's priorities, saying Starfleet Academy spent more time on romance triangles and identity politics than on exploring what Starfleet actually means and what values it's supposed to represent. He brought up shows like The Expanse and For All Mankind as examples of science fiction that respects both the genre and the audience, essentially drawing a very clear, very public line between what serious sci-fi looks like and what Starfleet Academy delivered. And while he didn't call out anyone by name, everybody in the industry understood that his comments about the current creative leadership not understanding what made Star Trek special was a direct shot at Alex Kurtzman, the man who has been running Star Trek on Paramount Plus since Discovery launched. The room, as they say, understood the assignment. Now here's where the story really gets interesting, because the timing of all of this could not have been worse for Paramount. Starfleet Academy was already struggling before Pine said a single word. The premiere numbers were modest at best, and they dropped fast as word of mouth spread. Reviews were mixed, with critics echoing many of the same concerns Pine later voiced publicly. Audience scores on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb were noticeably lower than other modern Trek shows. And keep in mind, those shows themselves had already been controversial with portions of the fan base. So the foundation was already cracking. When Pine's comments went viral, they didn't just add fuel to the fire. They handed people a megaphone and gave the criticism an undeniable credibility it hadn't had before. Suddenly the story wasn't, Starfleet Academy is underperforming. The story became, Starfleet Academy is so bad that Captain Kirk himself refuses to finish watching it. That's the kind of narrative that sticks. That's the kind of headline that defines a show's legacy permanently, regardless of what happens next. And Paramount knew it. According to insider reports, executives went into full crisis mode, emergency meetings, discussions about damage control, debates about whether a public response was even possible. They reportedly considered trying to get Pine to walk back his comments, having other Star Trek actors publicly defend the show, or making significant creative changes for a potential second season to address the criticisms head-on. Every single option had a fatal flaw. Getting Pine to apologize publicly for having an honest opinion? That was never going to happen. Chris Pine is not that guy. Rallying other cast members to defend Starfleet Academy would have just drawn more attention to the fact that there was a serious divide within the Star Trek family, and announcing creative overhauls for Season 2 would basically be an official admission that Season 1 was a failure, which would destroy whatever remaining audience confidence the show still had and throw Alex Kurtzman directly under the bus. Paramount was stuck, and the viewership numbers were continuing to fall in real time while they argued about what to do. Then came the moment that reportedly sealed the show's fate entirely, and honestly, it's the most Hollywood thing you'll ever hear. When cast members from Strange New Worlds, currently the most critically acclaimed and fan-beloved of all the modern Trek shows, were asked about Starfleet Academy in press interviews, nobody expected what happened next. These are people who work under the same franchise umbrella, people who benefit from Star Trek's overall success, people who had every professional reason in the world to smile at the camera and say something supportive. Instead, silence dressed up in diplomacy, carefully constructed non-answers, the kind of polite, vague, say-nothing responses that actually say everything. No enthusiasm, no genuine praise, just professional courtesy doing the bare minimum to avoid an outright scandal. And in Hollywood, that kind of lukewarm silence from your own allies is louder than any criticism. When your own Star Trek family refuses to go to bat for your show, not out of malice, but simply because they genuinely can't bring themselves to defend it, the game is completely over. Paramount read the room, did the math, accepted the brutal reality staring them in the face, and made the call. Starfleet Academy is done. The official cancellation announcement came out quietly. No big press event, no elaborate statement, no attempt to spin it as anything other than what it was. Paramount released a brief statement thanking the cast and crew and saying they remain committed to expanding the Star Trek universe with, and this is the part everyone noticed, quality content that honors the franchise's legacy. Coming right after the cancellation of a show that was publicly criticized for being neither quality nor honoring the legacy, that phrasing is about as close to a public admission of failure. Corporate speak for, yeah, we know, what you'd expect, completely split down the middle. Half the fandom is celebrating, saying this proves Paramount is finally listening and that Pine deserves credit for having the guts to speak the truth out loud when everyone else was too scared to. The other half is furious, arguing the show deserved more time to find its footing and that Pine's comments effectively sabotaged something that could have grown into something great. And then there's the question of what this means for Pine himself, because speaking this honestly in Hollywood always comes with a cost. He's being celebrated by fans, but studios notice when actors publicly trash franchise projects. That said, Pine is established enough that he doesn't need to play it safe, and there's an argument that his willingness to demand quality might actually help when it comes to potential future Kelvin timeline films rather than hurt it. Paramount knows now that he won't just show up for a paycheck, he wants it to be good. Whether they respect that or resent it is the real question. Let's be clear about something though, because Chris Pine's comments were the spark, but the fire was already burning. Starfleet Academy had serious creative problems that existed independently of anything Pine said. The show never figured out what it actually wanted to be. Was it a teen drama, a military coming-of-age story, a Star Trek adventure? It tried to do all three and mastered none of them. The characters were diverse in casting but not in writing, archetypes dressed up as people. The social commentary, which Star Trek has always done brilliantly when done right, felt like lectures instead of storytelling. And most critically, the show never made you feel why Starfleet matters, why these kids would sacrifice everything to be part of it, why the institution represents something worth believing in. Without that emotional foundation, nothing else can work. Pine called it. The audience felt it. And eventually, Paramount had to face it. Strange New Worlds is almost certainly getting more resources and attention now. Other planned Starfleet Academy spin-offs and expanded universe projects are almost certainly dead, and Alex Kurtzman's position as the unchallenged architect of Star Trek's future is almost certainly shakier than it's ever been. The ripple effects of this cancellation are going to be felt across every Star Trek project currently in development, and that might genuinely be the best thing that could have happened to this franchise. Because sometimes a franchise needs a moment like this. A public, undeniable, impossible-to-spin failure that forces the people in charge to stop, recalibrate, and ask themselves honestly whether they're actually serving the thing they've been entrusted with or just producing content and slapping a beloved name on it. Star Trek deserves better. The fans know it. Chris Pine said it out loud. And now Paramount has absolutely no excuse left for not listening. The question is whether they actually will, or whether we'll be right back here in 2 years, having the same conversation about a different show.